I can see what's coming. I know how this works. I'm stage 8 down the line. You guys are stage 2. And I want them to be okay. So actually I'm here because I really care that I want them to be all right. And I know there's so many mums here and dads and grandparents who worry for their children.
Yes.
And I would like to think that I don't speak for anybody but myself, but I would like to feel that some of those people feel they have a bit of a voice through me, because I'm just like them. I just want my children to go to school, be okay, be happy, and come home.
You were out filming in Oslo.
Yes.
And something happened.
So yesterday, when I arrive anywhere, you know, I don't like to do this thing where you just turn up, you go to a hotel, then you go to a venue, do a speech and disappear. I don't like that. So I like to try, even in a small time, to go out and look around. So that's what we did. You were kind enough to take me around. We went to the eastern suburbs. You'll be able to help me with the names of the places we went to. One particular road beginning with B.
We walked through from Jernbanetorget to through Oslo City Centre, and then we walked through Steinersgata and down Brugata, which is the place for stabbings in Oslo.
Yes.
You know, lately, or the last year or so, it's really increased there because of territorial drug-related crimes. And then we walked to Grønland, and then we walked up to the mosque in Åkebergveien.
I'm here at the mosque in Oslo in Norway. This is the eastern part of the city. And what the left don't want to acknowledge here, what no one really wants to talk about, Norwegians just want to get on with their polite lives, is that the east is rapidly being taken over. So people that used to live in the east have moved out to the west. This place is starting to become kind of overrun with Somali gangs, starting to get inside the local councils, police starting to patrol the east less. Sort of the same stuff that we see over and over when you start to get a takeover of a part of a city by Islam. It's a strange thing, of course, because Norway is seen as the bastion of happiness and the bastion of culture, but in truth, I think it has many of the same problems that the rest of us face in Western Europe.
And just a little tour, and then around Grønland, and then we took the tube up to Tøyen, had a look around there.
Norway is much like many of our cities, certainly like Sweden and what I saw when I was there. So in the centre, it's all very perfect. You know, people will say, well, I went to Norway and it was lovely. There were no problems at all. And of course, that's true. Here in the centre, it's very much perfect Norway. But now Oslo is divided into east and west. If you go east into this area, that's where you'll start getting in trouble. Locals have told me that by the time they get out here, they can very often be the only Norwegian left on the train. And here is where the privileged elite live, distant from the east. And they'll tell you everything in Oslo is just fine. So to share this with a wider audience, all I try and do is show what I see. And people could like it, not like it, whatever. So we did a piece in the underground where I was explaining against the subway map, the underground map, how the east is very much where the migrants are going, where the Muslims live, and people are moving away from the east to the west, where it's very rarefied, privileged, and probably if you live in the west, you imagine there's no problems at all. It's just so similar to so many cities. It's London, basically. So we did that as a short clip, then a clip outside the mosque where I was explaining that in this area there is an increasing problem with Somali gangs, knife attacks, axe attacks. What's happened in response is the left have gone crazy. So it's now become a kind of Norwegian viral video. What I've said is outrageous. This is clearly a beautiful mosaicked building, despite the fact it's actually falling down one story up. That there's no problem at all in the east of Oslo. There is no problems with any migrants. Everybody loves everybody. There's even a wine bar, so it's okay. And I'm talking lies, and it's dreadful. And now I think a city councillor is involved. People are sort of making themselves feel better by denying there's a problem.
For most Norwegians, it will be a shock that somebody says something bad about Norway and Oslo, because we're used to being, you know, we're used to the praise, you know, Norway is so fantastic, everything, it's the happiest place, and indeed it is.
Of course.
But we do have sides that isn't so good. And, you know, by exposing that, people go all bananas.
But it's the fact that you venture out into the reality they want to whitewash. and expose it for what it is. Yeah. I mean, everybody in Oslo knows what it looks like.
Yes.
And we see people come in here who hasn't been here for years, and they sort of...
They're shocked. Well, a lady I met last night, I mean, the journalist that's creating the fuss, he didn't take the time or courtesy to come to my talk last night.
Bård Larsen.
He didn't come to put these challenges to me, which I would have totally welcomed, but now he's back online in his little mum's bedroom writing his hate. And I think what is interesting is when you speak to real Norwegians, they say that their country has changed, their city has changed, and they don't recognise parts of it anymore. And I was shocked yesterday, and I naively thought Norway was full of Norwegians. The east is not, I didn't see many Norwegians in the east of Oslo.
No, we didn't.
You see, the attacks on you is actually a sign of weakness. You know they are losing because reality speaks for itself.
I think it's really true. Because Norwegians, I understand, are not big fans of CCTV or security cameras or surveillance, something that we have everywhere in London, and rightly so. And what I notice is that Norway very much likes to sit in a sort of nostalgic place. It likes to sit in the Norway that it used to be, where you don't need security cameras because Norwegians are lovely, beautiful people. But your city isn't catching up with its new reality. And its new reality is you do need surveillance, because walking through some of those subways at night, I imagine, isn't exactly a pleasant experience for, well, certainly not, I wouldn't have my daughters walk there.
I wouldn't.
You sort of gate crashed Norway last night. Yes, because, and people felt, well, this isn't so dangerous. I mean, what you say are simple truths. So you sort of, I think you change the conversation. People have this inner sense of if things are true or not.
I think it's always the case. So the media do me a service in a way, because they always portray me as a monster or a vulgar bully or any of the labels, the racist, xenophobe, fascist, Mussolini, I guess. And then when I turn up and I turn out to be this kind of curious little mum who's just explaining how things are for me and my family and other families I've met across the world, I'm not trying to persuade people of my point of view either. I'm trying to merely share it. And I think that's why people understand the message you're trying to share. And they even, a gentleman kindly came last night and he said, you know, I'm from the left. I wasn't going to come. I definitely didn't think I wanted to come, but now I'm here. I realise that there's points of agreement we have. And I think that to me is the gift, where someone who didn't want to come because of all the stuff they'd heard came and then realised there's probably more that we have in common than divides us, because it's the media making us feel divided. Actually, in the honest truth of things, there's a lot we agree on.
The screening of your new film, Homelands, I think was probably quite shocking to a lot of people who don't follow necessarily the development in Europe, because Norway is so far behind. We're still in this little happy oil bubble, you know, and everything is nice and pleasant here, even the weather. And people are not aware, because the information from Europe is lacking. And last night you also met Hege Storhaug, who is the author of the Islam, the 11th Plague, and she actually dedicated her book to the Jews in Europe, just like you were talking about. You know, they are the sign. When they leave, we should pay, you know, we should really pay attention to that.
And I think that's exactly, you know, they are the sign of what's ahead for us. And I think, therefore, going to Paris, going to Israel, hearing those families, and people watch Homelands, they can listen to those families without me being involved. I'm just the questions and the interviewer saying that, you know, you should treat every day like September the 1st, 1939, of a mother who's bought a flat for her daughters in Israel because her daughter says, we know it's not a question of if, but when. You know, these are big lines, and you know, saying the optimists ended up in Auschwitz, the pessimists ended up in LA with a pool. There is no time for optimism in Western Europe anymore. I mean, these are big
thing someone's saying. That's a lovely lady who's just a regular mum saying you can't afford to be optimistic in Europe anymore. And this is where Norway still very much is. And I think it's good to be it's good to be optimistic. You know, I'm all about a positive, strong message, but I think there is some the determination of many of the left to put their heads in the sand against all evidence to the contrary is a little perverse.
We are paying for a comfort zone, and it's comfortable as long as the money don't run out. And it's just a question of time. And that's not real safety, you know. No. And I think people have an inner sense that, you know, this is where it's heading. So much better to defend your freedom now
than to wait. And I totally agree with you. There's always a way of sort of throwing buckets of money, oil money or whatever money, at a thing to isolate yourself. And we have it in London too. Many of the elites who are very pro-open borders, pro-mass migration, they are the ones who live in a kind of rarefied, splendid isolation, private schools, private health, private, you know, this and that. So they aren't ever rubbing shoulders with the issue. And I guarantee that as more of the problems from the east end up in the western suburbs, as attacks start to happen near people who, well, goodness me, I didn't think that was happening here, then people start to wake up. But money can only distance you from a problem for so long.
As you say, you know, as you talked about yesterday and last night, was that people are withdrawing ever more, you know, to a safer space, which is shrinking. When you look at London, you now have the moped gangs, you know, just running around, you know, with machetes and just chopping people and hitting people with hammers and robbing them. And in the more affluent areas, people are paying for private security. You know, this is starting to sound a little bit sort of South African.
And it's
you know, you're starting to guard yourself, pulling back. And I mean, I noticed it even in a small little thing. I just bought a little doorbell with a video camera on it, which also notices, you know, any movement. So, and goes straight to my phone, so I can actually see if somebody's approaching my house. You know, this is kind of things we wouldn't really want or need, but it's spreading very quickly.
And it's done in a very kind of acceptable manner. So you start to live in a gated community, you know, behind fencing, which is obviously a very South African thing. And when I spent time in Sweden, you know, it's one of the things that I find curious is the Norwegians with their heads in the sand when they live so close to Sweden. I kind of want to say, can you not see your future? Because it's really close to you. When I went to Rinkeby, so a suburb of Sweden, which has, you know, huge problems, suburb of Stockholm that has huge problems. The fire station there in Rinkeby was building a massive fence around it. And I went to see the fire master there. It's the toughest fire station in Sweden. And I asked him about this fence, and they were building it because the migrants there attack the fire trucks. They steal from the fire trucks, steal the cutting equipment, and damage the vehicles. And I was asking him about this fence, and he said, well, we won't be building walls to keep the people we want out. We'll be building walls to keep the people we love safe inside. And I think that's a really true thing about walls, and the more walls we will start to build, you know, you can imagine there'll be more demand in Oslo, in Norway, for homes that have a way of putting a perimeter around themselves, a physical one, to be able to keep that sense of divide.
And we will try to avoid contact that is unpleasant.
Yes.
I was in Copenhagen, and there these utility cars, you find them everywhere. So normal taxis will be superfluous in a very short time, actually.
Absolutely true.
Because people have unpleasant experiences with taxi drivers. Your daughter cannot trust the taxi driver. No. So, I mean, everybody knows. And now they can avoid it.
And whether they're physical walls or they're walls we're putting up via, you know, even the jihadi bollards, which Norwegians have happily disguised as flower planters, you know, those are manifestation of walls to keep people safe.
But
you know,
we don't admit it.
No, they see the pansies instead.
So I sense that people today are becoming immune to the rhetoric from above. Yes. You know, the words homophobic, racist, white privilege, it doesn't stick anymore.
No. I think the biggest fear is from the media and from the establishment is the fear that they're starting to lose that control. Yeah. There's people out there who have access to audiences, who have media, you know, the platforms you provide. It's a fear they have because that ability to control people is being lost because we're fighting through it.
We heard that on the media conference in Bergen, just before you came, where Bannon was.
Yes.
I think there were some 1,300 journalists there. We heard 99% were white Scandinavians, you know. And these are the most ideologically committed. Yeah. But they don't recruit.
And it's a curious thing, of course, with diversity. Yeah. You know, one of the towns featured in the documentary is Saviltown in the UK, a small town in what was, you know, the rolling hills of Yorkshire, you know, very traditional Britain. You know, it is 97% Muslim, and that in itself is not necessarily problematic. But the question is, you know, where is the diversity here? Why is diversity always one way? Why does nobody notice when there's zero diversity of another, of us? Yeah.
Little interesting book, the Islamic Republic of Dewsbury. Where he actually writes, you know, the local editor of the local newspaper writes about, you know, how this change actually happened, you know, gradually, you know, how the numbers of Muslims increased, how the pub became a mosque, how the rugby field all of a sudden had pieces of glass put into it, how the cars were scratched, how the girls were groomed, you know, everything that sort of happened gradually, and it was just, this is the picture what's happening in every little northern town in England. Yeah. And this is where Tommy Robinson wants to be an MEP today during the election. Yeah.
Because he, you know, there's a sense for so many people, and I feel it here as well, so many people know they can't express these feelings of feeling like second-class citizens or feeling like the country is really changing, but they can't say it because they know it's not the approved way of thinking. And what that does, of course, is it pushes that kind of sentiment downwards. But it's a huge layer of people who feel this way. And Tommy Robinson has very effectively kind of sort of almost drilled into that. It's a sort of a mining of a deep layer of discontent. And it will happen here as well, of course, because, you know, we met people last night who have come out as conservative or come out trying to stand up for Norway and have been attacked. A lady last night was saying that she had had drinks thrown at her, a young lady. She'd had rape threats purely for trying to stand up for Norway. And that's such a strange thing. I found it in Sweden as well. I met a young lady in Rinkeby. She was telling about the migrant men that she was frightened of. She didn't want her face to be shown on camera because she said, it's the feminists that will come for me. So she wasn't afraid of being attacked by the migrant men that she feared. She was frightened of the feminists in Stockholm. And that's exactly it. You know, our women, feminists have never been so disappointing because they don't stand up for our daughters, not one bit.
No, not at all.
And that's where you come in, because you obviously are a role model for free women. Well, because women sense that they're going to lose their freedom. You know.
We are losing the freedom. Yeah. If the police is telling you shouldn't take a taxi by yourself anymore, you know, go in pairs, and they did that here. And Raymond Johansen, he's he's from the city council. You know, he wanted to have routes, you know, that could be sort of safe in Oslo, that to guard women as they walked home, to prevent rapes. Yes, really? Yes. We call them Raymond routes. You know, it was funny because he claims Oslo is a safe city, and he will still claim that now, I think.
Raymond routes.
Yeah.
You know what he said? Most people at night get home safely.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine then. Yeah,
reassuring as a mom.
Let's all aim to be in that group.
Yeah. Let's aim to be one of the most people. So for all these people that are criticising me, saying it's a lie, Norway's a completely safe place, Oslo's completely safe. A city councillor was discussing safe routes that would be non-rape routes, basically.
Well, it's not that long ago that the police actually had to say that, you know, the number of stabbings in Oslo had doubled compared to the same period last year. And the fact checker, faktisk.no, said, oh, it's actually true.
It's true.
Yeah.
Stabbings have doubled. Don't talk about it. No one mention it. Yeah.
This potential for you to sort of break through, and because you communicate on as a mother-free woman.
Yes.
A big, bold woman who's super normal. You know, my favourite thing is getting home and putting on my pyjamas. I've got 3 kids, all under 15. I'm not very good at baking. You know, I'm just super, I have so many flaws, but I'm super normal. But because I've been doing this for a long time, speaking out, and so I'm used to being criticised very heavily, is they can't shut me up by just, you know, normally a label will shut someone up, or a rape threat will shut someone up, or a fear of physical attack. But I'm not frightened or intimidated by any of those things, and they find it deeply frustrating. And the thing they hate most of all is that if you were just speaking absolute nonsense, you know, like a lunatic, you'd just be a mad woman, naked. Don't know why I added the naked, I just did. Naked, shouting at the rain. No. But because they know there's elements of truth in what you say, or they can see what you're getting at, that really bugs them. And it's the reason there's 1 million people following on Twitter. There's a reason the video we made yesterday has 200,000 views. It's because they know there's something in it. Because if it was just absolute lunacy, you just disregard it.
But I think it even goes deeper, because there are a need for a mother role, you know.
There is.
I mean,
there is.
The protective mother.
Yeah, it is that.
Yeah.
It is that. Because, you know, as much as any of these people are criticising me or whatever I say, I actually just want them to be all right. I want Norway to be one of the countries we do save. You know, I want their lives to be really good. I can see what's coming. I know how this works. I'm stage 8 down the line. You guys are stage 2. And I want them to be okay. So actually I'm here because I really care that I want them to be all right. And I know there's so many mums here and dads and grandparents who worry for their children. And I would like to think that I don't speak for anybody but myself. But I would like to feel that some of those people feel they have a bit of a voice through me, because I'm just like them. I just want my children to go to school, be okay, be happy, and come home. But it's that we're not sure of anymore. We don't know that as a guarantee anymore.
The men are no longer men. They don't protect their women. They don't protect their wives and daughters. So when you said something very dramatic, I never heard it said before, England has fallen. You know, I think of men who is not defending their country, and especially their women.
And in a way, that happened for me. You know, there's a legion of very great men who have stood up to fight for our country. And right now, our government is prosecuting our soldiers for things they did back in Northern Ireland 40 years ago. So that's the level of attack that people who do stand up for fight for their country. And then, of course, if someone was to retweet a tweet of mine, that is a sackable offence in companies in the UK. And so for people to speak out, you know, it does cost them their job, and men need to provide their mortgage, pay their mortgage. You know, we are controlled by the things that we are committed by. And, you know, having children means you need to pay your mortgage. So I understand why more men don't speak out. And it is a real pity, though.
But it's not just speaking out. It's physically protecting your women.
Yes, it is. And we have failed to do that. And you know, one of the things, the reason I can say we have fallen is it gives me no pride to do that. I wanted to be in the forces. I love my country. I get letters, they're really upsetting letters, emails. And very often it's the first email that person's ever written. They're 80 years old, 75 years old. So they'll write and they'll say, this is the first time I've sent an email. And they'll say, I'm glad my time is nearly up, so I don't have to see my country fall. And for our older generation, they're glad it's nearly over, so they don't have to watch that final bit. And that, to me, is just, that's so distressing. Sure. And then for someone in my generation, we're thinking, well, okay, I'm going to tough it out, but I need to leave my children somewhere where it's possible for them to have a future, and that isn't England. We will be overrun.
History has, in the past, had surprises, you know. So I don't think it should be so pessimistic.
Okay.
But we are entering a very dark valley, as Daniel also said, you know. But we have to stand up for ourselves.
Yes.
This is the thing. Because if people, they go through stages. They become immune to the official propaganda. And when they meet someone like you, they realize, you know, I will be for myself. And then they are lost to the establishment. They never come back.
No, and that is the positive. And today, actually, you know, the day of the European elections, which normally nobody cares about at all in my country, but today, you know, I can feel it already. You can feel it online. People are going out. I think the Brexit Party, people saying they will have their vote respected. I think they could well do 40%. And people are grabbing their pens and going to the polling stations with a pen because they're so determined to make their mark that won't be erased because we feel that our last vote didn't count, and they're making their mark. And that's where I really pull into that positivity of you never know, because there's this feeling in the UK right now, no, we've had enough of the government telling us what to do, we've had enough of being lied to. Until we get what we voted for, you're not going past us. And I feel that defiance in Britain. So there is still, there's still that hope. Oh yeah, of course. And there's many of us. You know, it's one of the messages we were talking about last night. We're many.
Why people loved you last night? Because Norwegians like Brits. You know, we like your sense of humor. Yes.
The final line of defence that we have, isn't it? Taking the mickey out of ourselves.
So, dear Katie, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Really.
I'm grateful.
You moved a lot of us, you know. We want you to come back.
Well, I'm grateful to you, though. I think you don't probably take praise that much or hear praise as much as you should. But if it wasn't for people like you and the people that support your platform, people like me wouldn't have the opportunity because we are shut down. So what you do and what your supporters do, everybody that ever clicks on your articles or supports you financially or buys one of the books that you have, you know, they are helping stand with us as we fight for our countries. And so it's really important what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.